Hello everyone and welcome to Snap Take. I should be on vacation, but when they buff my favorite archetype, well, we get a video. Bounce got two major cards buffed and one other that might fit there. This is a hugely impactful OTA. They seem to be doing less OTAs with balance removed from patches, such that I'm pretty sure that when they do OTAs, that they're making sure that they hit the meta, that they're very impactful. They do hit arishem in this OTA, but I'm not sure how much they do so. I'm going to ask you before we get forward to hit that sub button. It would really help us out. If you're willing to hit that sub button, please do. It helps us grow immensely, and we're trying to hit, well, we're trying to hit 13,000. We're at 12,000 right now. Our goal is 15,000. Hopefully by the end of this year, and if you can help us get there, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. 7 days of Marvel Snap content starting today. Well, today will be 8 videos this week, you know, because why do only 7 when you can do 8? Because the OTA demands talking about. We have the following changes. I'm just going to go over them quickly. Blob remains the exact same text, except he's lost his ongoing ability, which means he now can be moved and now cannot be copied by Mystique. Mockingbird finally gets the long-awaited nerf to 610. That's what I expected. A lot of people suggested a 5-7, but I thought that was too net neutral. I thought a 610 was more likely. Good to see that happen. As announced, Hydra Bob goes from a 1-4 to a 1-5. Ravonna Renslayer loses a point of power finally, going from a 2-3 to a 2-2. Viper now targets the lowest power cost card at your location, not just any card at your location, which makes her exponentially better. Sauron gets an extra point of power to a 3-4. Werewolf gets one of the most impactful single points of power possible, going to a 3-2. Hitmonkey as well goes from a 3-2 to a 3-3, gaining a point of power. And then finally, Lockjaw goes from a 4-5 to a 4-4. But now, Lockjaw, any card you play there, you can play 4 cards there, and all 4 cards will cycle with your deck. We're back to the original Lockjaw text. What we're going to do is we're going to take all of these cards one by one for both analysis and then a deck for each updated card. Let's begin with Blob. We're going in the order that Second Dinner presented them to us. So we deleted the ongoing text, cannot be moved. Ongoing text of can't be moved is now gone. So the rest of the card is going to operate as normal. The reason Second Dinner did this, or at least the assumption for the reason Second Dinner did this, is that so Mystique would no longer work with Blob. Mystique will still copy any other ongoing / on-reveal things that exist in Marvel Snap, but Blob is no longer an ongoing, so Mystique will no longer copy Blob. That seems like it's probably good in general, except most of the best, and you can check yesterday's video, that's Wednesday's video. We had 3 different arishem decks that all hit number 1 on the Infinite Leaderboard, and none of them ran Mystique. So I don't think the best Blobs were bothering with Mystique. So that seems good, but it seems sort of like it's not really doing anything. The other thing that this does, if you really were relying on Mystique for Blob, is you just sort of run Absorbing Man, and Absorbing Man is better anyway, because Absorbing Man gives you, in addition to a second Blob, a second Shang-Chi, which is pretty damn good. Rogue can no longer target Blob, which is a net negative for a lot of decks that were using Rogue in terms of their big stuff as a way to just sort of get their own Blob, which usually wasn't as big as the Blob that the arishem opponent had, but it lets you sort of add enough power when combined with other things to be able to steal that lane. And this is a big one. The second best deck in the meta has, for the past week or two, been how do I put this? This Cannonball Junk deck that Husky Puppy's made that has Dagger and Ghost Spider in it, along with all the classic Junk stuff. Cannonball in that deck was a really great Blob counter. It can still be because it's Clog, but that's no longer assumed. You're gonna have to actually aim it and try and clog other lanes and stuff in the arishem matchup, which is significantly harder. I think that this is a net buff to Blob, not a net nerf to Blob. I don't know, that's not what they were going for, but I think this is going to make the card slightly better, not slightly worse. To the extent where this is one of the arishem decks we looked at yesterday, this is Batman 99's arishem deck. I don't think a single card changes. I think that this is the exact same deck it was. It runs the exact same counters, the exact same power cards. Eliath has found its way into basically every Blob deck at this point to protect Blob, so that'll stop the Cannonball if Blob has priority, or the Shang-Chi as the case may be. So but Cannonball is relevant in this. Eliath would have stopped Mockingbird from copying it, but would also stop Absorbing Man from copying a Blob. So Leech will stop that Mystique or that Absorb Man, right? Like, so all of this is seemingly net neutral. You probably, or at least consider, cutting Rogue from the deck now, but Rogue wasn't really here for opposing Blobs. Rogue was here for opposing Darkhawks, so you probably leave that alone or add Enchantress anyway, right? Like, that doesn't really change anything. Echo wasn't stopping Blob gaining his power, so, like, I don't know what changes. I think Blob is still every bit as good as he was, except he loses one little bit of counter synergy with Rogue, or two little bits of counter synergy with Rogue and Cannonball. Next up, we have Mockingbird, who goes from a 5/9 to a 6/9, which first and foremost makes her vulnerable to Shang-Chi. That's reasonably big. There's a number of times where a lane just played like a 6, a 5, and a Mockingbird, and you were like, did they just drop a 20 power lane that I have no way of interacting with? Yeah, well, now you can Shang that Mockingbird. That's pretty good. 9 is probably the best power in the game right now, and she goes to a significantly worse power. This is the only power buff / nerf that I think makes a card buff that makes a card worse. So she is now a 3 with Mysterio or Shauna, and a 2 with 4 with Brood or Squirrel Girl. She's being discounted 2 with Brood or Squirrel Girl. So a 4/10 is good, but we have plenty of 4/10s. When she would become a 3/9 off 1 Brood, that's what made her so good in Surfer. This might really, really hurt her in those Surfer decks. Surfer decks don't super want a 4/10. They were all about a 3/9, right? They were all about a 3/9 because you can play that at the end of the game with Surfer without any shenanigans. So I think she might be gone from Surfer decks. That might be the main place that loses her. I think the Mysterio decks are still probably going to run her, and the Zoo decks are still definitely going to run her because they're all about those stats, and they have cards like Shauna and Squirrel Girl to really help things. She now really, really significantly overlaps. So, let's actually take a moment longer on that. So, the general good stuff decks that were just running her and Mysterio will probably still exist. They're still in the market for a 3/10. The decks that were running her in Surfer, which was a much fairer place, but Surfer wasn't tier 1 deck, and she was in tier 1 Surfer decks, then those decks, I think, cut her and have to find something else to do. Perhaps the Zune-style Darkhawk version, while I'm pretty sure the decks that were sort of built around her with sersi nonsense are still in the meta, but not top of the meta. She now very severely overlaps with Sasquatch to the point where they have the same cost of strength, and she makes Sasquatch look very bad in most situations, although there are decks that want Sasquatch and not her, notably Bounce. If you're trying to bounce using a lot of smaller cards versus Mysterio, you'd much rather have Sasquatch as a general rule. She's still going to fit in arishem decks because they don't care. They have extra energy. They will happily play her on turn 4, right? If they play 1 extra card, they can play her on turn 4, and they're perfectly happy to do so. All right, so this is a deck that runs her that I think is going to continue to run her. This is Owie's, i.e. Gwenpool. This is saying that I want to spend turn 4 going Gwenpool, turn 5 going Mysterio and Brood or something along those lines, and then I can go Mockingbird Sasquatch. That has not changed. She is just really still good in a lot of these decks that run her in this package. If you want to Mysterio on 5, I think she's still absolutely stellar. A 3/10 is great, right? You're just perfectly happy. I think Mysterio is going to be her key partner now, and Brood is still an okay partner, but Brood is no longer going to be the only card you run with her, unless White Widow continues to be insanely prevalent. The power of White Widow in the meta is one of Mockingbird's secret keys, because so many people are running White Widow. White Widow has become the default too. With no more Professor X everywhere, Jeff has lost a lot of play, a lot of equity, and so White Widow has replaced Jeff in a ton of decks. Since White Widow has replaced Jeff, that's an extra -1 on Mockingbird. Now you have a 5/10, you play a Brood, now you're down to a 3/10 anyway. So if White Widow continues to become just the most common frickin' card, then I expect this to continue. But this is a really cool deck that I think Mockingbird fits in. She fits into a lot of stuff like this. Hydra Bob goes from a 1/4 to a 1/5, and is this just the best generic one now? Yes, this is the best 1-drop in Marvel Snap. This power creeps out Ant-Man in a lot of decks. It power creeps out Nebula. Nebula has to trigger twice to get this, and Nebula might get there. You're losing a little control but from running Hydra Bob, but you also get the extra equity of the Snap as a utility, as a resource. So and this blows away Martyr. Unless you're running both in a deck, there's literally no reason to run Martyr. I also completely forgot about Rocket Raccoon when making this list. Rocket goes in bounce decks better than this, but hey, bounce is real happy to just have a static 1/5 it could just play. Furthermore, why the hell would you ever run Lizard over this? Like, this is just a better card than Lizard. Cerebro 5, Zoo, and Move synergies abound with this card. This, like, should be in just a lot of decks. Is it going to be replaceable in all those decks? Yep. We just listed, like, 7 cards that could replace this. I think this is marginally better than all of those in the abstract, and so it will be in more decks. But, caveat, you should not need it for any of those decks to actually work. So, quick secret idea is Namora in a Scar build. If you can get this out into a lane alone, and remember you can then move it, you can make this a 1/10. And if you got a, let's say, Nocturne in another lane, you've got 2 10-cost cards, and you've now got a 2-cost Scar for your last turn of the game, which seems like it's pretty frickin' good. So I think that is going to be a place to examine with Hydra Bob immediately. But the sample list we have for you is Parry Manilow's C5. Lizard should totally be cut for Rocket here, but outside of that, this list is basically perfect. And you just run a bunch of ones, and your goal here is to, oh, actually, I think you might actually cut a Leech. Yeah, either way. So your job is to wave Doom or Leech if you can. But either way, you have a ton of 5s here, and you just Cerebro them up to be 7s, and you've got 7s in a ton of lanes, and it's really, really hard to beat when you've got 7s in a ton of lanes. That's 28 power in a lane. Very few decks go bigger than that on a regular basis, taller than that on a regular basis, and a lot of those that do are ongoing decks, and you've got Enchantress. So this list is very powerful. You just save your 1s to the end, you play Black Swan, and you go, thank you, I win. Right? Like you just played, if you play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you have Rocket, 5, 7 power cards, you just had a 37 power final turn. Seems like that's probably pretty good. You could even do that with like a Cerebro and a Nocturne, for example. And then you had a yeah, we're getting silly. You understand the idea. This deck should be real. Like, I can't imagine that if we can figure out the exact alchemy of this, this won't be real. So props to Parry Manilow for coming up with this concept immediately upon seeing it. I think it's legit. All right, next up we have Ravonna. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Ravonna goes from a 2/3 to a 2/2. This shouldn't change much. You're going to lose X percentage more games with 1 less power. Like, people are always like, 1 power doesn't matter. It definitely matters. You're going to lose more games not having 1 extra power in a lane. Does it, like, overall super matter? No. It's going to make her a little more vulnerable to Red Guardian, for example, in an Angela lane, but the decks remain the same. You just take your X percentage less of wins. It's a very small percentage, and you're perfectly fine. We have the W good cards list. W's list still has a 65% win rate. That's why we're showing it. We showed this last week on like Friday or something. W is the best deck builder in Marvel Snap history. This is one of the best decks in the meta right now. It answers fundamentally everything. Ravonna is 1000% a key card here as a 2/2 or a 2/3 because all you really want to do is be able to make Mystique cost 2, right? Like, that's the whole point of this card in this deck. You make Mystique cost 2 or Iron Man cost 4, and that gives you a super power boost. You're fine making Thena cost 1/2, of course, but that's not like the priority of the deck. Really powerful deck built specifically to give Arishem nightmares, and it does that to great effect. Next up, we have Viper. This is my sleeper change because the other change that's really, really huge people are seeing. On reveal, switch one of your other cards here switches sides. On reveal, one of your other cards with the lowest power here switches sides. So if they have 2 cards of equal power, that's going to be complicated, but other than that, it's great. This should be really impactful with Clog so strong right now. It could do nothing for now too, but she's still exponentially better and will eventually find a meta spot. I think she immediately goes in decks with Hood. There's enough White Widow in the meta, like I'd be running her with White Widow and Hood. There's enough White Widow in the meta that I'm perfectly happy to just like have her. And like if I don't draw my Hood, like I'll be fine, right? I can play her on a naked lane, I can play her on a rock or something like that and be totally fine. But if I get her with Hood, I basically just got in, I got a 1/6 demon for free, and I took 3 power and a board space away from the opponent. I think this is stellar. Like, I'm looking for places to play this card. I think this is going to be an absolutely great card. I decided to show this Sersi Annie list because I think this is a great home for this card because we have both Sentry and Hood. I think this fundamentally just becomes a part of the Annihilus package at this point. This might be what the Annihilus package needs to get back into the meta as a real force, as a real deck. I'm going to begin my testing with something along the lines of this. I might try the bounce version because, we've all met. I love bounce. So outside of the bounce version, this could be where we are. This could be like what we want to be doing in Marvel Snap. This is so much power to this deck. Like, it's really hard to overemphasize how much getting rid of that Hood or Sentry without having to play Annihilus or commit a certain lane to Sersi does for a deck like this. Being able to play this and a Jeff or this and a Demon on turn 5, it just seems crazy strong. Or you can just use it on turn 1 and then you still have your Sentry and the opponent thinks they're relatively safe. There's a lot of combos here. This card seems very strong. Again, I will be immediately putting this into bounce as well. All right, next up we have Sauron, who goes from a 3-3 to a 3-4. So if you're an old Shuri Red Hulk player, feel free to try the list again. The list still has really great win rates whenever I look it up on various sites. So feel free to give it a try. Like, I think it's better than people expect. I consider this kind of buff the kind of like, hey, remember this deck? It's actually good now. You should try it. Update. So like, I think that's what this is. This is saying you should try Shuri Red Skull. Did you know it's good? So you should try Shuri Red Skull. I'm pretty sure it's still good. This is also a reminder that Sauron doesn't stomp out Blob. You could not run Sauron in a Blob deck prior. It would take away his whole text. Much like Mystique would copy the whole text, Sauron would take out the whole text. So that's not a problem anymore. You can run Blob in a Sauron deck, which is nice because those decks tend to run a bunch of really, really high power stuff. So you're very likely to get an extra powerful Blob out of the deal. I think Blob is a pretty good top end there. I don't know if I'd rather that over Red Hulk. I really like Red Hulk in these Sauron builds because you can Shuri Red Hulk, you can't Shuri Blob. But either way, I'm pretty satisfied here. Here's a version of the list. You could easily add, again, if you want to test Blob, you can test Blob here. I don't think you need to. I think you're perfectly fine with the play pattern of ideally Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster or Sauron Typhoid Red Skull, and then you can like Shuri Scar or do some other nonsense with your 2-cost Scar. This list is silly. This is going to be very good. I think people should genuinely try this. I don't know who made this exact version, but it doesn't, like, this is not like an unknown list in Marvel Snap. The only card that you get any downside for is armor, and you just drop armor onto when you have it. If you don't have it, you're totally fine. Lizard without a downside is fine. Feel free to cut your Lizard without a downside for Hydra Bob if you want. All right, my favorite deck, the deck I have a 70% win rate with, is going to be on the next slide. We're going to talk about that deck more momentarily. It is Werewolf going from a 3-1 to a 3-2. Werewolf is one of the key cards in that deck. This is my best deck, but it has a low win rate, although its win rate is like 55% this season. Werewolf is really, really good against Arishem, but really bad against Clog, so you're just going to have to run from a lot of Clog matchups, but you should be able to beat the Arishem matchup once you get good at the deck using this list. Werewolf as a 3-2 is absolutely insane here. Your Grandmaster targets here are Beast, Black Widow, Sage. And occasionally White Widow. I will very rarely do White Widow. Cool. Once in a while, I'll grab a second Demon if I know that I need to go wider. But like, this list is crazy strong against Blob because Shadow King, Werewolf, and Darkhawk. Werewolf will get big enough in some games if the locations are not unfavorable, because Arishem doesn't really answer what you're doing. It will get big enough to just straight up beat a Blob in a lane. And if you can do that, well, then Darkhawk usually wins another lane. I've moved Werewolf to a lane to beat Blob using freaking Hood, and then just been like, cool, Darkhawk. I also lost once because apparently an on reveal will move Werewolf into deep space, which I did not realize. I thought deep space like completely cut that off, but apparently not. Whatever. Neither here nor there. This deck just got another power. Another power for this deck is huge. Like, this deck has a ton of close games that are won and lost on the margins of what decisions you make. Well, that just got significantly easier. Thank you, Werewolf by Night and Wolf Hawk. Just for the record, I was around rank 250, 350, something like that. 2 seasons ago with this deck, in a totally different meta. Then I played this deck last season. I had a 70% win rate, and I won an Infinity border with it. And then I hit Infinite with it this season, and now I have a 70% win rate with it. Again, this deck is real. You just have to learn how to play. Next up, Hitmonkey gets an extra point. This is my other favorite bounce card. So, unfortunately, Werewolf decks aren't really Mysterio decks, which means they're not really Hitmonkey decks. You can try some Black Swan decks where you do both, but, like, I'm just going to tell you right now, that is really, 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 really hard to pull off and needs a lot of things to go well. So complete like fair warning if you want to try to do that. Like it's not impossible, but it is not easy. It's worth looking into a deck that's basically Werewolf, Monkey, all ones, and Black Swan, maybe Bishop in there too, to see if that works, but my guess is it totally doesn't. So if that does work, though, that it would be a very, very powerful thing to do. If it doesn't work, that wouldn't be shocked. Look, I'll test it, it's bounce. The Angela change really smashed Monkey decks, but this should help. Werewolf just getting a little bit, Hit Monkey just getting a little bit bigger is big. Although, one major problem this deck often has is Alioth is back in the meta, and Hit Monkey does not love Alioth decks. So, Yo Woody just posted this. We have not had a chance to feature it. We featured 2 other bounce decks yesterday. But Yo Woody just posted this a couple days ago, right after that video was recorded. And Yo Woody has like a 60% win rate with this Hit Monkey bounce list. This one is sort of what I'm talking about, where it feels like, I don't know, maybe this deck with all its ones could work, right? You can Hit Monkey off early here. You can literally go Bishop into Black Swan into all 4 ones Hit Monkey. And then you've got a super cheap Sasquatch along with other stuff to play at the end of the game. I don't know. This isn't exactly a list I'm super comfortable with. This isn't the way I play my bounce. But I think it is a really powerful list, and Hit Monkey being stronger super duper helps in all of these lists. Finally, we have what I would call the sleeper. This would have been my sleeper, not Viper, but everyone knows this is going to be silly at some point. Lockjaw becomes a 4/4 from a 4/5 and loses its once per turn. Any card you play there swaps with the deck. Now, the first and obvious thing to say is this is eventually going to break Lockjaw again. I don't know when, I don't know how, but they keep giving us Ramp and Marvel Snap. If they give us anything like Zabu back, look, eventually Lockjaw is going to be broken. This effect was always broken. It's too good. Thanos Draw or Jane Draw might exist just with this effect, but the Zabu change still here really, really hurts this. Although, like, maybe not in Thanos so much. I don't know. This seems like it might be actually scary. This was a card that consistently became broken when it was a 3/3 with this ability, to the point where they made it a 3/3 with the once per turn, and then they made it a 4/5 and kept the once per turn, and it was unplayable. So, like, I think that this is going to be insanely powerful at some point. I'm not sure what deck, but, like, sooner or later this breaks. Also, we're going to have to test this out a lot in Arishem, right? Because Arishem can still play this on 3, and then it can play its leech bullshit into this, and, like, that just seems crazy, crazy powerful. This is the old .geo Thanos. .geo also made the Darkhawk deck. But .geo played this in some major tournaments and almost won some major tournaments with it. I basically said, okay, we don't need Jeff anymore. Let's throw in Zabu, because we're just trying to cheat out Lockjaw on 3. Look, there's worse things to do than cheat out freaking Cull Obsidian on 3 too, right? You can also still cheat out a Dr. Octopus or a Vision. This list seems super strong right now. Like, if you can go Stone Psylocke, you're in really great shape. You Dr. Octopus on turn 4, drop a Cull on turn 5 or a Kyra on turn 5, whatever. You're just going to town. You can drop a Scar on turn 5 at that point. You can drop if you don't get Lockjaw, this should still win. If you do get Lockjaw, this seems like it's really good. This might bring Thanos back. I'm not sure if the stones being so much worse generically changes this, but this might bring Thanos back. All right, that's it for this OTA. This OTA should look okay. Before we get to Patreon stuff, Arishem should still be the best deck, bar none. I don't think that anything is going to touch Arishem, but I think we've given Arishem a couple more Predators, and those Predators might have a touch more strength, so I'm interested to see where that goes. Thank you. Please check out patreon.com/snapjudgments if you're willing. $1 tier gets you into tournaments. $10 tier gets you thanked on every video. I'd like to say thank you to Abigail Giesland, the OG, Mandatory Burnout, hello friend, Cables, Irregardless, it is a word, David G. Wingfield, the Direwolf, LAB, always kind. Check out FaThorNewman on YouTube and Twitch. Help him out with his Twitch partner push. Good Dog Gamer. Hello, Good Dog. This is The Way, all the way from Scotland. Ink, the Graphite Fan. I am Frostman, you sure are. Jay Neverite. Doomer. Primed Ryan of Primed Mind fame. Check it out if you would like to increase your competitive edge. Or just get some good coaching. Oh, King of Questions, Kerry Tixley. Koi Ray, come all the way from Japan. Pyro Froze, hey Pyro. The Goat Seeker, who I had a great conversation with yesterday that I'm laughing about now that I think about it. 2 days ago, whatever it was. Denman Falcon, check him out on YouTube. Really great shorts, really great splits. Quid Pro Joe, hey Joe. Doc T, the king of Blue Marvel Snap content. Fat Nick. Ginger Prime, Ginge. Ratcoat, Haplo. Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone. Rob Silverman, another one of our OGs. The Notorious Bizza. Extra Sweet and Skippy G, rhyming friends. Tommy Nyquist, winner of Snap Judgments League Season 1 and sponsor of Season 3. The King of Bros, bruh. Black Dahlia. The Great Kazoo, womp. Jessica Gamble. Our own Ryan Wood, Woody. Kev Sihora. Luna Chris. Archangel 3K. John Q. My former student. Is it John Q or John K? I wonder. Our own former student, Louis Antunes. Mod Supreme Models. The one and only Darth Vader. Reme Satala. Brian Kaufman. Tristan H. Martin. Jason B. Real name fam. J.D. McDonald Ho. Check him out on Twitch. He streams like once in a while. The Fuzzy Dunlop. Spectre Mix. Who? Matt H. DJ Mackie Hijinks. No Frickin' Flex. Ocularis Rift. Mr. Craig Sterry. Seamus. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Jonesy. Two Ties, who in fact does have two ties. The great Lauren Whatevs. Congrats on the job. The Pirate King Tuccrr. The Homie Min. And of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for. I'll see you soon. I am at the Bahamas as you're watching this. So I'm on a beach sipping something nice. See you in a few days. There's still content coming every day, though. Peace.